Buffs are always great. Whether it's a Titanfall burn card or a simple weapon attachment that increases stats, Arcane Enhancements are a neat, but not mandatory section of the game. You can grind for them via running raids if you're really after those small percentage buffs, but you truly don't have to obtain them because of how minuscule they can be, unless you make it a goal on Warframe to have everything that will maximize your chances of not dying. Honestly, I find it really stupid how such a small yet optional portion of the game is so expensive to obtain. I get that some arcanes like Arcane Healing are absolute fucking trash, which is why they're so cheap. Then there are other arcanes that are good to use, such as Arcane Guardian or Arcane Rage. These types of arcanes are usually around the 40 to 70 plat range if you're getting a good deal, mostly because Rage and Guardian are pretty good arcanes. But then in comes Arcane Avenger, which can go for over 220 plat each. I know that Avenger is really good because it increases the crit chance of all your weapons by 30% when maxed and activated, but come on. If you're selling a single arcane for over 200 plat, it'd better either give me the ability to fly or the ability to solo everything like Loki. 220 plat could be put to better use by buying a Loki and Bolter Prime set, which would not only make you basically geared up for endgame content, but it would sure as hell be of better usage than a single fucking Arcane Avenger. The original Arcane concept is neat, meet a requirement, whether it be getting a headshot or taking damage, and you'll get a chance of applying a buff on yourself, depending on your equipped arcanes. It's odd to talk about arcanes, because if you yourself are interested in grinding for the arcane of your choice, you have to ask yourself two questions. First off, you have to ask yourself, am I on good terms with RNGesus today? I naturally assume that if you're doing raids, you're either one of those guys that actually does credit farms, or you don't have the platinum to simply buy your arcanes. The first step towards acquiring your arcane is accepting the possibility of spending a half hour or so on a mission that can potentially reward you with something as arcane consequence. Do you accept the chances of getting this piece of fucking trash? If you do, you can go ahead and ask yourself the second and last question, do I believe that this percentage buff will truly be worth the wait? Arcanes are useful if you have them, but there are times when they're absolutely worthless to have, much like a bounce. Of course, there are certain arcanes that can be really strong, such as pairing an Arcane Guardian with a Valkyrie, an Arcane Pulse with an Oberon, or an Arcane Ultimatum on any frame capable of performing easy finisher attacks. There's also some arcanes that are so situational you'd be better off not getting them, such as Arcane Warmth or Arcane Arachne. Really now, would you really ever use Arcane Arachne outside of Stalker farms, especially when other choices like Arcane Awakening could make better use of the slot? If you don't notice it by simply looking at Arcane Warmth, some of these arcanes would be better off just being mods, or non-existent. I'm sure that on paper the idea of being temporarily resistant to a certain proc was sheer brilliance in the mind of some employee over at DE, but considering that the resistance isn't even 50% when maxed or the amount of plane required to obtain an arcane, even insulation would be a better pick by comparison. Arcanes are like tiny equipable versions of Hydroid, you really can get by without any. But even if you decide to work up the balls to grind for it, it won't make much difference, unless you go for a specific raid with a specific arcane that provides specific buffs that trigger from specific conditions that you can use on a specific warframe, with a specific build. Arcanes are really fucking situational, but also really fucking good if you put the right arcane on the right frame. If you're incapable of noticing, they definitely have some benefits to them, but they're barely required, much like vitamin supplements. While they certainly do have a good idea behind them, arcanes have fairly been on the back burner for some time, much like Oberon. Oh, let's also not forget the fact that someone at DE thought Arcane Arachne was a good idea. Why? Just why? If you don't mind, I'm going to go alleviate my confusion about Arcane Arachne by taking my max power duration limbo with Arcane Trickery and a Jotkit tag to public Draco squads. I hope you don't mind. Thank you for watching.